museums. And that wasn't always the case, but Jean Weber
Yes,
did
and
support
I
Jeannie in that.
and Max
in
very
that.
much appreciated her support on that issue. And so we did do our very best to keep it just, the only thing we did was we cannibalized the little old office space, which now has some
Well,
exhibits in it. Yeah.
You say those 2 bathrooms were added later, but
Yes.
what did the building that you designed have a connection to the old museum?
Oh, yes, yeah.
It did,
But
but
I
it was
kind
just
of-
sort of a hallway?
I have kind of forgotten that behind you is the roll of drawings over here, which they can be brought over here so they can be seen. This is the drawings, and frankly, I have not looked at them. You know, it's been 34 years since I've looked at these drawings, and this is a set of prints of them, but that's a lot of drawing for one little building. But that may be why it could be built for the price that was bid. Because I was a rather poor specification writer, but I was very good at drawings, and fairly good at contract writing. And so that's how much paperwork goes into one little building sometimes. And the state of Wisconsin was just getting digital at that point, 1990. I had a computer in my office, but not graphic design capacity. And so I had to hire some firm in St. Paul to take my pencil drawings and make them digital in order to send them into the state to get the final payment from the state, so that they have a digital copy. And I wonder if they can find it, and I wonder if they can open it. You know. Another question?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, were the Capsters still alive when the addition went on?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
But Bella's brother, Rule Harmon.
Yes.
And of course, Rule put a lot of money into purchasing land here on the island for the wilderness early on. But did you ever get any feedback from Rule or anyone else in the family about?
I have never met Rule. We had friends in common, but I never met him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have another mechanical
Yes,
question
please
for
do.
you. You mentioned the hitting the water table
Yeah.
somewhere partway down to put in the lower level, and so there's a sump and a pump down there.
Yes.
Are there artifacts stored down there?
Yes.
Isn't that a little risky?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where all the collections
Well,
of the
well,
archives are downstairs.
What's that?
I think,
Plus the necro.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You see, I think if the sump pump went off, the water level in the basement might end up 6 inches or something.
6 inches.
Yeah, we're not talking about.
So we're not
basement.
talking about filling it up if the pump should go out, no one should be there.
Well, I think those are good questions for the current management.
Yeah, I just don't.
Generally, in all my projects
Pumps
where
go
we
out.
had encountered water,
agree with you, yes.
usually you're just barely into the water.
Oh,
With
is there
rare
a backup
exceptions.
generator, or you may not know?
That would be a good question.
Okay.
So, and I think at least, the bare minimum that needs to be done is any artifacts and papers and correspondence that needs to be kept above 6 or 8 inches above the floor, which probably is true anyway.
But that was one of the main reasons for building the addition, is because you could have air conditioning, you can, have the right conditions to preserve artifacts,
Yes.
particularly in a, climate like this.
controlled.
Well, and
Climate control.
I was very happy that we were able, and that the program included keeping artifacts on the island in the museum, because it's so easy for things to go off to most of my life was in Minnesota. And there's no bigger historical society in the country than the Minnesota Historical Society.
What was that, I'm sorry?
The
There's no-
Minnesota Historical Society is the largest in the nation.
Yeah.
And its capacity may be the largest too. But you give them something and it goes into their system, whereas having artifacts on the island, papers, whatever, and having at least a little bit of research and a little bit of documentation and staging and stuff go on in the museum itself, I think is important. Yes, sir.
So what about these drawings? Are they yours?
Yes.
And
No,
you,
those are Eric and Laurel's.
Max's.
Oh, this
They
set,
originally
Just one
Max,
set.
Yeah.
but the museum has
The museum has a set?
the original.
Oh, okay.
More original, yeah, and I suppose the historical Wisconsin would have gotten a
Well,
set too?
no, well,
No?
they have a digital, the state of Wisconsin has a digital version of that, and then my original tracings that made those pages are going soon to the Northwest Architectural Archives at the University of Minnesota.
Cool. That's,
Well, they'll need those because last year, the Wisconsin Historical Society did do a site assessment
Yes,
of the whole museum
and
and
they say just
site.
trash can it and move.
Well, they didn't, but there are issues, certainly,
Sure.
and some, issues that the building isn't new anymore.
Yeah.
It's lived its
34 years
life,
old.
yeah.
So you've done restorations.
Yes.
And the museum is a new building, but sort of part of a restoration? Or part of putting things in historical context?
We really didn't deal much with, we were there actually yesterday, and we went to the, I had previously been there, but we looked at the presentation in the little theater space. And, one of the few spaces that's really permanent there is the exhibit that's in the theater space. It happened that there was some surplus space outside, and I thought, well, we could use that as a display in the theater space. And it works, I think, pretty well in that regard, but basically there's relatively little other permanent display in the new building. And it was purposely meant that way, so that the large room with the wood trusses is intended to be changing display. And it may be there for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, but it still is intended to be changeable. And that's what it is. So I did bring along I only have 2 pictures in my archive. So I brought those along. That's when the building was still being born.
Oh, so that brown is the color.
No, I don't know for sure, maybe. That's a nice color.
The surface the walls can be painted.
Or is it
That's a good-
stained?
Well, they need paint again, anyway.
yes. Was it stained originally or
It
painted?
was stained originally.
That's what I
But I think it
But
could
it's
be
wood?
power washed and made.
Is the exterior?
I remember when it
It's
was that
cedar.
color.
It's cedar. So it
I thought it was.
should be fairly durable if it's occasionally
Well,
maintained.
that's the
But it's
roof.
ready
that's
for
under-
maintenance outside.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that.
And I believe that like that ramp
Yeah.
that gets you from the parking area up to the front
Maybe
door,
try one more.
I think we built that in wood, and I think it's going to be built rather
I think
successfully.
so.
It's something more permanent.
Hopefully so.
Well,
Yeah, I have
Did
that
you
with
see
it when we build a building.
look at
You
the
only
color.
set
It's
it
not color. I mean, it looks like an abstract itself, doesn't it?
And there are buildings where that's true. I mean, wonderful historic buildings that have not been changed because they were so very well done.
So having looked at it
Yeah, I always
yesterday,
thought it was like
what would
attractive
you
with this
change,
brown.
or what would you do
That
going
ceiling.
forward?
Hard to maintain though.
Yeah,
Well, I think I've kind of already touched on that. I would go back
Wait.
to.
Yeah, could you state that question again?
So that having looked at the building yesterday, what would you do going forward? What should?
Well, I'm always a little shocked by seeing objects made in China for sale in museum stores. I think trying to find local indigenous products to sell in the gift shop, whether it's ceramics or whether it's, I think that I
They
did
do
pick up.
have some of that.
They do have some, and it's not easy to do. It's not easy to find handmade local objects and things that are saleable. So, but I think that has to be something that should be worked on
Oh, so
to
you
the
should say
extent
that.
possible. And I think the outside, the kind of light gray color that it is, it helps it blend with some other 1970s buildings or something, but I don't think it doesn't, if it was a nice dark rust red, brown or something, I think it would stand out more. And
Yes.
I
bring more people in. So that's something I think I would work on,
Lee, you had a
Yeah, I have a
question?
question. So
Yes.
you said that there's been a facilities assessment or something like that recently. Do Friends of the Museum have are you working on funding to do to assess or to fix what needs repairing? Or how
Well,
are you
it hasn't-
approaching that?
It hasn't gotten to that
That stage?
yet. I
Okay.
mean, WHS did this last year. They gave us a kind of brief overview of it at one meeting in the winter, and we need to be brought more up to date. We've been focusing on that exterior space where they took down the stockade,
Oh,
because there are many needs now with it just open. I mean, there are security needs, there are access needs. How do you figure out where to enter the museum? And they will be working on that, and we plan to be very involved with that. So that's been our focus so far. And we just know that they have found that the Capser Center as a building has kind of aged out and needs a lot of new systems and so forth. So I would expect that is something that'll probably go into a capital budget that will, take time to get state funding and that sort of thing. I think we are maybe more interested in not funding that kind of project, but something that has more of a community aspect to it in that outdoor space. I'm maybe speaking for some of us, but
And we have received a nice contribution from a local donor,
good.
so it will be a starting point
Yeah.
for anything.
right, we're kind of waiting to learn more about their design process, and we've been promised that we will get a meeting on that in the early fall.
I think removing the stockade was not a bad idea.
No.
I think maybe maybe some stockades were built on the island at some very early date, I don't know.